Hello everyone, welcome to Old Bluff Sawmill. I'm Brian, your host. I wanted to take time and do another video and explain a little bit more in detail about a previous video that I had done on increasing the saw head speed going up and down on my sawmill. I had several viewers call on the telephone. I probably took 6 calls on that and had several comments, some good questions. I hope I answered the ones on the phone well enough, but gentleman Dave with the old man in the sawmill, I guess this is mostly for you, Dave, because you had a good question about being concerned with the overload on the motor as far as amps. You're concerned about that. So I've taken the time to kind of go through all the calculations that I had done on my first modification to that pulley to increase the speed. And as I mentioned in the last video, I wanted to go ahead and do another 10%. That's what I'd done before. Actually do it, that'd be a total of 20% on my machine. So I went ahead and I've done that. I didn't have all the figures that I'd done. It's probably been 2 years ago that I did the first modification. So I've gone through and figured up all the torque, amperage draw, got those readings. And big shout out to my son Will. He's actually an electrical engineer. He helped me take some of the amp probe readings on the machine, so he kind of keeps my feet on the ground in all my thought process and going through all this. So, you know, to answer your question, Dave, what we've got, the machine came with a 5.1 diameter pulley originally, and I have changed it out to a 4-inch diameter pulley. You have to excuse me for looking down at my notes. I've got 4 notepads, a napkin, and a little cheat card that Bearings and Drives gave me years ago for all the torque, RPMs, feet per minute, everything. So I've gone through all that. So what I have done in the difference between the 2 pulleys, I have decreased the pulley size 21.5%. Okay, and overall what that has done, it has increased the speed of the head going up and down 27%. So that's pretty big in my opinion. And as far as the amps, the 5.1 diameter pulley, the original, at startup, it had 57.12 amps at startup. During the duty cycle, it was 13.7. Now this is a 80 amp motor. It's tied to a 70 amp breaker. So we've got that to work with, a 70 amp breaker. So we're staying well within those limits. As a matter of fact, we've got probably, I've got it here somewhere, a 14% cushion of amps to the breaker. That's just to the breaker, and that's really all we need to be concerned about. That's the protection for it. But there's still a 25% cushion of amps for the motor left. Okay, so I think that we're staying well within reason with everything for what we've done. I wouldn't recommend going any faster on the machine. I think that the 21.5% decrease in the pulley size is adequate from what I'm seeing with the change in the speed. And you know, talking about the change in speed, that's not something you're just going to jump out at you. But you will notice a difference in it, I promise you. Especially if you do what I do in slicing the cant. So you're going through, you have to raise up at the end, come back, drop down, and just, you know, that cycle till you finish. This is why I got into all this. But I will say that I think, you know, even if a person doesn't want to do this modification, at least check the tensioning of your belt from the motor to the gear reducer. No matter what brand or model of the sawmill you've got, just look at that. Because you're going to get a big difference in RPMs between the up cycle and the down. A big difference. what we came up with in my calculations, I had, for the up cycle, I had 1,084 RPMs on that 4-inch pulley. I've got a digital tachometer, so I took the reading straight from that. And on the down cycle, I had 1,609 RPM, so that's quite a difference. It was 500 something, but that is like a 33% different or decrease in RPMs of the input shaft of the gear reducer, and that's where we're putting that pulley. So that's a sizable difference just between the up and down cycles of the machine. You know, talking about the amps again, you know, during the regular, say, duty cycle in lifting or lowering the saw head, it's not a continuous cycle. So, you know, you're just doing it for a few seconds at any one time. Those startup amps, because this is a non-capacitive DC motor, but just the startup amps in the up cycle is what I paid attention to. So I set all my parameters using that. So I think that we're well within the scope of cushion, I guess you could say, of being safe with everything. But that was a good question, Dave, and I just wanted to take the time to go over everything, especially since I increased mine another 10%. So I wanted to check on myself as well. But, you know, in talking about all this, it's not something you're going to see right off, but you will notice it cutting a larger cant during the time that it takes to do that. You'll see a difference in it. In my mind, it's a good modification, but it's, you know, not necessarily something that everybody might want to do if you're not kind of dedicated to what you're doing. So, if I'm missing anything else here, I'm just trying to make sure I've covered it all. And if you do have any other questions about it, you know, by all means, just leave a comment down below, and I'll be glad to take a look at it and make sure. But I have poured over this, I think, a day and a half, making sure that all my numbers are right, everything matches up, and I'm pretty satisfied with what I see here. But like I said, I would not recommend going any more than that 21.5% decrease in the pulley size. You don't want to push it, especially the gear reducer. I think it's only a 3/4 inch input shaft, so you don't want to push the key in that shaft. You know, if you get too much torque on that, you tend to twist the key, deform it, and that can cause you issues down the road. See if there's anything else. I want to mention again how dangerous this modification can be to your sawmill. You've got to remember to put the chain around the saw head frame itself and run it up across the top member of the frame of the sawmill. It's very dangerous. You've got to do that. Bring tension down on it before you take the tension off your belt, remove the belt, because once you take that electric brake off on these Woodmizers, it's just ready to free fall. So it's very important. You know, everything that I do in my modifications, in talking with people, explaining things, I definitely don't want my viewers to hurt themselves or the sawmill. So you know, when I say something like this, it's very important. So I'll stress it several times. This is probably the most dangerous modification that I've done, so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. If I'm not giving my viewers something, I look at my viewers like a customer in what I'm doing. I kind of got in this channel on a whim. I had my customers at the sawmill, probably 80–90% of what I do, I cut logs up for people. They'll bring them to me, or I go get them and we'll cut them up, whatever they need. But them seeing the modifications that I've done, probably 50% of them wanted to be here just to see the sawmill running when I was cutting their logs. So they got to kind of talking me into posting some videos online that you know, people might have an interest in it, and I'm glad that you do. I mean, the viewers that I get ask good questions, and it shows me that there is some interest out there. So I'm going to keep them coming as long as I can. I apologize for the video audio problems on the last video. I've got to get a better camera at some point in the future, so I'll work on that. But overall, I hope that I've answered the questions and satisfied everybody's curiosity and concerns about the amperage and different things related to this modification. I had a comment from another viewer, E. Graham. He's interested in seeing the takeoff conveyor that I've got set up on my sawmill. So it's coming up probably in the next video, and after that we'll probably start running production, different things. I've got some large pecan logs. If you guys have not cut into much pecan, it's very pretty wood. It's one of my favorites, that and hickory. I've just never gotten much into the walnuts, the darker things myself. Back in the day, I built a lot of cabinets, entertainment center furniture. And pecan and hickory just kind of grew on me, the look of the grain. So, like I say, if you've got any other questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment there in the description, and I'll be glad to look at it. So until then, take care and be safe.